Okay, on our workbench right now we have some parts for the display area of a pre-war Stoner. This will apply to the 6 selection as well as the 8 selection, and this particular one is out of a pre-war theater, so they're all similar in regards to the display. Now what we have done is we've sent out the display, the actual backing display plates, and had them chrome plated, and all the parts you see here have been rezinced for the most part. These brackets we did mount or install with some aluminum rivets, and we put those back on each one of these. The supporting brackets are all zinc plated. The main support bracket is also replated. What we did do is get a new rod, which is a stainless steel rod that will slide in here and lock everything into place. Springs are the original springs. If you have one broken, you have to get one made. Fortunately, ours were all okay. The only new part is the 1/8 inch by 2 inch hollow tip rivet on here, and this will facilitate holding the brackets to the panels, the chrome plated panels. So the orientation, there is an orientation to this, and you'll see that this is mounted with these elongated slotted screw holes, and you'll also notice that there is a provision for the rod to slide through. The rod gets supported and slides through accordingly. So what I want you to do is, for our orientation, keep the screw slots, the elongated screw slots, down in this particular fashion, because when it mounts into the display area of the cabinet door, that needs to be out towards the back of the machine, if you will. So with that in mind, let's rearrange some of our parts, and we'll get this in a little closer so you can see what we're going to be doing. Okay, the parts we'll need the tray with the bracket riveted on. We'll need one of the support arms, the smaller spring, the smaller diameter spring, the spring for the upper part of the arm that holds to the main bracket is a much thicker arm or thicker diameter spring. The other thing we'll need is our 2 inch hollow tip rivet. So what we'll do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit and get you a little closer. What I recommend is, on all these support arms, make sure they're flat. That's one of the things I would do before you send it out to the zinc plater. So just make sure that they're flat in any direction. And what you also want to do is make sure that when you took this apart, that they fit in there fairly easy. So what we're going to do is start our rivet, get it part of the way through, like so. Now there's a hook end and a straight end. The straight end is going to stay in the middle of the panel. So what we need to do is we need to force it open a little bit, slide it onto our rivet while we're sliding our rivet over. And what we're going to do is put the rivet into the support arm and then slide it through the bracket like so. So it'll look like this, and you'll see it. And what we'll do is just keep that spring over to the left. The arm will keep it there pretty much. And the last thing we have to do is, since this is a hollow tip, we need to flare this end out so that the pin or the rivet, the long rivet, the 2 inch rivet, won't slide out and cause this to fail. So what we'll do is we'll just get our dolly, a little hammer, and this has a flared end punch on here. Okay, and what we'll do is just sit this up on here like so that the head is supported. Put the flared end into the rivet and just tap the end. You don't need much. Just with that flared out, now it won't come back out. So that's how you put those springs and rivets and this bracket on here, and you'll see that it's spring loaded. The only thing you might want to pay attention to is just to make sure that it's, this isn't all bent up. These should be aligned with the edge of the bracket as well. And here's another one that we did. So we'll go ahead and do the rest, the subsequent 6, and we'll meet back with you. Okay, with all the shelves and their 2-inch rivets installed on the brackets, you'll notice that everything is spring loaded at this time. I also wanted to let you know that Vintage Restorations does sell these 2-inch tubular rivets. They're available at our website. Now what we need to do is, basically, these all have to mount on here. I've set the springs out accordingly, and what we're going to do is, this is going to mount right in here. They're going to mount right inside there. And what we need to do is make sure that that's a little snug. So what you want to do is you just want to squeeze these in a little bit so that these stay in just a little bit. That way they'll function properly when they're installed. So what I'm going to do is make sure that every one of these is going to install and slide into the brackets properly. Okay, we've oriented the main bracket inside. Each one of the display panels is inside here. There's no right way or wrong way. You can either come from the left or you can come from the right on this. What's important is to pay attention to the orientation of the spring so that this dog ear will rest at the top of each one of these flanges that it rests on. The bent part will rest over the top of the actual arm bracket. So I'm going to start from left, and what we're going to do is get this started, slide this in. And when we get over here, we're going to have to slide the spring in and push down. And I'll zoom in to show this to you. We have to push down so we can pick up the bracket. And this is where it's going to take a little bit of pressure. And then let it come up. And then once it comes up, we can install the next bracket. And what you'll see is this is now spring loaded this way. Okay, so I'm going to do one more. Rest it into position. I'll zoom in to show you. Rest it into position. As you slide it in, slide the rod through, you have to push it down so it will pick up the hole in this arm. So we push it down and slide it in. And then once it's in there, we can let it come up, and then we'll align it with the little tombstone, and you'll see it'll come through. When it comes through, we'll go to the next one. Okay, with it zoomed in, we'll do these next two. So we're advancing the rod so it gets on top of the main support bracket. Once it gets there, we put the spring on in position so that the hook is over top of the support and the long arm is over top of the actual bracket. What we'll do is we'll advance that and then push it down till we get it through the hole of the arm. Once we get it through the hole of the arm, we can now raise it up and slide it through. Now you have to be careful. We don't want to slide it too far because it'll come past our next bracket. So scoot it back just a little bit. Slide the next bracket on. And advance on to the next spring. Again, making sure that this portion of the spring is behind the support. Slide the rod through. Push it down slightly. And then let it come up. Now we're just going to continue on with the rest of them, and we'll show you when we're done. Okay, as you can see, all 8 are in. One thing I would like to have you to pay attention to is that the rod, there's nothing that holds it, just the tension of the rods. There's no bent, there's no flared ends. This last flange, if you will, that holds the brackets in the rod is flush with this end. The other end is not. It extends into it. This is actually where the instructions will be on the display window, as you can see. So with that said, I want you just to pay attention. I'm going to zoom in so you see it one more time. That way you can pay particular attention to the orientation of the spring and how it's hooked on here. Okay? And then that'll add tension to the spring, so when it's into the display area, it will keep pressed up. Now these displays, this is the back. We're looking at the back, just so you understand that. When these are put into service, we didn't put actual candy bars in here. They put the wrappers on there the display wrappers for each of the selections. So with that said, that's pretty much it for the display area.